It's finally here, the trailer for 7.0. At last, we're going to see my darling, war-torn, dragon-ridden, void-sent-beset, warring triad-loving home of Eorzean. The new world? Hey all, Elio here. A little late to the game after having to drive coast to coast and back for FanFest, but I finally got a chance to sit down and fully analyze the trailer to Dawntrailer. So this started out as a trailer analysis. Sweet Nafka's tits, how long did this video end up being? And then I got carried away. So this will ultimately also dive into a lot of the context from FanFest and in-game lore. I'm sorry. I promise it will for sure happen again. Okay, anyways, before we get into things, yes, I know I was wrong about Eorzean being the 7.0 map. You should have seen how loud I yelled the second a Mammal Jaw hand appeared at FanFest. I stand by my reasoning, but honestly, it being the new world, or Tural, as it's called, Rip Kenton land, is hella exciting, and the reasons of it being a summer vacation and soft reset for the new 10-year arc of Final Fantasy XIV are what we were kind of expecting and hoping for at the start of 6.x. Better late than never. There's a lot to cover, not only within the trailer, but also from FanFest and the surrounding information in the game, and all of it will help us parse parts of the trailer, so I'll do the best I can to make the deluge comprehensible. Despite there being relatively little we know pre-trailer about the new world, it still is a treasure trove of lore knowledge. Friendly reminder, by the way, that this is a teaser trailer, not the full thing, and there will be not only information omitted by shots being removed, but whole parts of the render may be missing, like Xenos' scythe in the Endwalker trailer. The trailers are also often not literal. Sure, a version of their events tend to play out, or the gist of the events happened, but everything we see here should be seen as the vibe of what to expect, rather than a one-to-one. If you're an old hand at Final Fantasy XIV expansions, I'm sure that's common knowledge, but we've had a ton of people come in for Endwalker, as well as who knows how many new Warriors of Light over the next year. Oh god, it's going to be a year, if only I had the blessing of Ulthik to make time go faster. Anyways, let's dive in. So first, the music. What a bop. I suppose at this point, it shouldn't shock anyone that Soken makes great music, but the tone set by each theme is so important, as are their lyrics. And since the new theme will be the base for multiple songs in Dawntrailer, like the boss battle music, it's good that it's, well, good, setting a much more light and breezy tone after the weight of Shadowbringers and Footfalls. Obviously, right now we don't know its lyrics for sure, and you'll see any number of interpretations out there. A version of the lyrics, at least one that sounds relatively close to me, is
enjoying yourself for a change?
We are come to the land you call the New World. My home. Tural.
So with that, the themes of freedom, adventure, and moving forward to unknown new horizons are apparent, and apt for how 7.0 has been described. But another fun thing is something they did in Close in the Distance, with a running through line for each expansion up to this point. Yoshi P once said A Realm Reborn was like a new dawn, Heaven's Word the azure skies of the midday, Stormblood the setting sun, Shadowbringers the night, and Endwalker the final moments before the new dawn. If so, that makes Dawntrailer the blazing of a way forward into a new dawn. This vibe of newfound adventure ties into the plot of Dawntrailer as we know it, too. The core conflict centers on the Scions coming to the New World. Invited by a stranger, most likely the one who ends the trailer with Tural's real name, the Scions are set up to search for a city of gold and to dive into questions of succession for the Golden Throne, via a rite of succession, with their group being split into two factions. We don't get a ton of answers who the sides are, or why the Scions are splintered, but it could be over the ideology of who should rule, or interventionists versus non-interventionists, or maybe just a race to see who can find the Golden City first. From the first shot, we get some sparkling seas and some dialogue from Alphino setting the tone.
Ah, blue seas, clear skies, and boundless possibilities.
The clear waters of the Indigo Deep are gorgeous. Though the area is close enough to shore, it may have its own name as a separate body of water. Since Yoctoral loosely maps onto Latin America, it could also be that parts of the area we see are Caribbean-inspired. The vessel the Warrior of Light is riding on is one of the Sharlayan schooners, which you can see in the docks of Old Sharlayan, with one major addition: a huge-ass light mounted to the prow of the ship, which we get a better view of later on, where we can also see Alphino himself tucked away on deck. Yoshi P did confirm that Alphino and Alisaie would be joining us on our adventures, so with his voiceover and appearance on the ship, it all tracks. Throughout the trailer, we see all of the major Scions, in fact, except for one character who is said to have a big part in future stories and did not show up: Kryl, but we can talk more about her later. Speaking of Lalafell, we also see a Lalafellian Gleaner piloting the boat, who is shorter than the steer column. So I have no idea how they can see where they're going, short of having some kind of internal radar, but better not to question it. We get a shot of the Warrior of Light, and it doesn't tell us much, though he does seem to have his cloak back from the moon. Or at least he got another one. And I'm sure that it's not covering anything suspicious or job-related at all. More importantly, we get our warm-faced bun, the Gleaner extraordinaire that is Erenville, asking if we are enjoying ourselves for a change. And it's kind of wild that a minor character in Endwalker has so quickly rose the ranks to fan favorite, but I love it, and it's great that he'll be with us on this journey. Particularly when it's exploring a new land for us and a return to home for him. From FanFest, we know that Old Sharlayan has its own routes to the New World, so travel to and from Tural and Sharlayan is at least a normal event, if not frequent. From the Pursuit of Knowledge short story, we learn that Erenville's name comes from his home village, as well as a desire to return there. And in 6.4, he tells us he needs to go on an extended journey and won't be back anytime soon. A sort of homecoming. It's never specified to be the New World, but it seems pretty clear that's what they were hinting at. Even if my poor Mericidian desiring heart had taken it as proof of what it had wanted most. Oh well. The thing is that both pockets of Viera we know of on Atheris are in the Gulmore Jungle and the Skade Mountain Range in Othar. So his home being in the New World, plus its very Eorzean name, means it's probably one of the villages that sprung up in the New World within the past 80 years or so. Okay, but I'm already starting to pull in in-game knowledge, so since we know we are headed to the New World, it might be a good idea to do an overview of what we know about Tural and its current lore, and go deeper in where relevant. So, what is the New World? Well, on Atheris, the main land masses are the three great continents, Aldenard, Ilsabard, and Othard, Mericidia, and Tural, known as the New World to Eorzeans. The continents loosely map onto Eurasia, Australia, and the Americas, respectively. Heading west from Eorzea across the Indigo Deep, you eventually reach the New World, which is called Tural by its people, or at least some of them, which we only now learned thanks to the trailer and FanFest. Tural seems to be split into two sections, its northern region and its southern region, much like North America and South America. The southern region, or at least the main chunk of it, seems to be called Yoctoral, and the northern region is unknown. For now, we'll just refer to it as North Tural. It's existed for all of Atheris' history, but during the recent astral eras was considered a myth by most people, until around 80 years ago, when a Leminson named Kenton Ram the Blue said screw it and sailed west until he ended up in the New World and tried to name it Kenton Land, which never caught on. While he was there, he met with one of the nations, which was ruled by the Mammal Jah, and presumably, based on what we know from FanFest, this supreme ruler was likely the Mammal Jah sitting the Golden Throne at the time. The Golden Throne being the seat of power in Tuliyola, which is the governing nation of Tural, or at least Yoctoral. This ruler was also known as the Autarch, but we don't know if that's Mammal Jah specific or the title of the one who sits the Golden Throne. What we do know is that the current ruler is Galul Jaja, the notably two-headed Mammal Jah, but we don't know if he was the same Mammal Jah sitting the throne 80 years ago. But we do know that two-headed Mammal Jahs are venerated as powerful leaders in their culture, and also very rare. You may have some memory of fighting one in the past in Wanderer's Palace Hard with Mola Jaja. These twin-headed powerhouses come from the fact that the Mammal Jah have two tribes, the brown-skinned, long-combed Hubigo, and the blue-skinned, big eyes Buniwa. The former of which is known for its physical might, and the latter their spellcasting prowess. When these two groups intermarry, occasionally a two-headed Mammal Jah like Mola Jaja comes about. There's a lot more to say about the Mammal Jah, but honestly, that probably will take its own tribal video, so hopefully I'll get back around to that at some point. Back to Kenton Ram, though. He was able to make good connections with the people of Tural that he met, to the point of being awarded a giant silver statue and free reign of the nation. And, in taking advantage of that, not only mapped much of Yoctoral, but also took myriad seeds with him, which he brought back to Eorzea. In short, you can thank him for Popotos. Not Lalafels, though. Blame that plague on the South Sea Isles. When it comes to travel between Tural and the continents to the east, we know that for some time there has been an established sea route to Old Sharlayan, but that route could have been established anytime in the past 1500 years. Travel between Tural and Eorzea in the past 80 years, however, once established, was still irregular and dangerous, and the contact between the two remained rare, until about 20 years ago, and our good old Admiral Merlwyb charted a safe course between the two realms. And since then, contact between the two has been semi-regular, with people like the Mamalja and the Wallaqui making easy passage to Eorzea to help in our Blue Mage-related affairs. Speaking of the Wallaqui, we should talk about some of the groups and races that are found in the New World. The current known races from in-game, trailers, and FanFest are Hyur, Miqo'te, Hrothgar, Mamalja of both tribes, the Pelu Pelu, and an unnamed group of giants that reside in the Urkopacha region. The Hyur, Miqo'te, and Hrothgar are probably not endemic. At least they are probably transplants from a time in the past, be it within the past 80 years or even longer ago. One point in time possibly being during the Third Astral Era with Allag. We know Allag had some dealings with the Mamalja and Tural, as you can find some in the Crystal Tower, which had been sealed away from the outside world for 5,000 years. So, no, we can't escape Allag, be it in traveling to the moon or the other side of the world. The Mamalja, as far as we know, are endemic to Tural, and only show up in the three great continents as mercenaries of one kind or another, seeking fame and glory to bring back to their homes. We can't really say much about the giants of Urkopacha, and whether or not they're related to the Gigas and Hecaton Kyries that we know of in Bannerlin and Mordona. The Pelu Pelu, however, we can say at least one thing for, which is they're just Toby from Final Fantasy X-2. Which, look, Final Fantasy X being my favorite single-player Final Fantasy, I'm all for more references. And the Mesoamerican ball game is suspiciously good grounds for something like Blitzball, but can we please get my Final Fantasy X waifus out here with the Hrothgals? You promised me, Yoshida! Okay, wait, this was a trailer analysis video. Okay, we should get back to that. After the logo, we get our first shot of land, and for half a second, my heart skipped a beat when I saw this and thought it might be Ogomoro, even though that would be a bizarre thing to put in the trailer. But then the Mamalja hand comes into frame, and that's when anyone who knows the lore knew where we were going. The New World. The area is clearly coastal with cliffs and home to Mamalja with a dense jungle. Actually, let's take a second to point out what geographic places we do know in Tural. One thing I want to note is that we aren't even visiting all of Tural, just the southern region of Yogg-Tural. Or at least I'm assuming that Yogg-Tural just means something like the southern Tural, since North Tural and even the southern tip of Yogg-Tural is still shrouded in clouds. And since we're looking at the world map, I want to point out this one other little thing they revealed. The South Sea Isles, which is native home to the Lalafels, and which we have been wondering where the Thal's Balls it was for 10 years. My money had been on south of Vilbrand, but hey, it's nice to have some confirmation, and also possibly a variant dungeon. Back in Tural though, Tuliolal, the nation state, is in the far north of Yogg-Tural. Yogg-Tuel is southeast across some mountains and is reached by airship from Tuliolal, which makes me wonder if the people of Tural invented them independent of Eorzeans, or if they were brought over in the past century. Since it's near the mountains in the southeast, the most likely place for Yogg-Tuel is these plateau-like mountains here. There's also Urkopacha, which we don't have a lot of context for, but its art depicts large mountains in the background, with Rainbow Hills, which are a lot like Peru's Rainbow Hills, which means that, if I had to guess, Urkopacha would be somewhere southwest of Tuliolal, in the not Andes Mountains, in the not Peru region, of definitely not South America. What's interesting though is that there's no mention of the Wallaqui, but since that group is patterned mainly off of native North American groups, maybe it's that they don't have a presence in Yogg-Tural. Since we had mention of other cities in 7.0 beyond Tuliolal, I wonder if we won't at some point have the cloud cover of the other sections of Tural removed before the launch of 7.0. And currently, the sections we are seeing of Yogg-Tural are just 2 of the 6 maps that take up the third of Tural that we can see. There's not a lot to say about the Mamalja walking through the forest of Tural, but when our boy Estinian pops in, things get interesting. Not for anything that happens, but because other than showing us Mamalja, there's nothing in this shot, and then it swipe cuts before any of this adventuring crew can do anything. Look, I'm wrong as often as I'm right with future content predictions in Final Fantasy XIV. Actually, I'm pretty sure my average isn't even that good. But the quick cuts and swipe cuts are going to come up again and again, and it's worth remembering where they do and what they may or may not be omitting. After the wipe cut, we get our first shot of Tural civilization, with a city and a parade of Mamalja, having captured some sort of scalekin that looks remarkably like Goro from Some All Hard. And while there's nothing that indicates that the same creature was native to Eorzea or Tural, it's possible that it, or a cousin, could exist in Tural. Or, asset reuse. Goro may even be a reference to an American folktale monster, which makes its existence here make even more sense. One creature that we do know is native to the New World is the tamed Weirs that is carrying the cart that the Scalekin is on. These Triceratops-looking dudes are commonly used amongst the Mamalja, and you may remember seeing one also in Wanderer's Palisade. The Mamalja are all celebrating, And this is where we see our first child and female mammal jaw, which is new since historically tribal groups either share or omit models for different sexes, let alone children. Hroth kittens when? You can also spot male Hrothgar for sure, and maybe a few Hira Mikote in the background for just a few frames. But where is this all going down? Well, it might be as simple as being Tuliolal, but another possibility is somewhere in Yaktael, since it's the main region for mammal jaw and Hrothgars. We see a shot of the same area with the Stinian and the mammal jaw kids later. You can tell the rest of the Scions are for sure in Tuliolal based on some of the FanFest art, and it's possible that the wall in this shot is this wall here in the screenshots. Cutting away, we have something attacking the Warrior of Light, who's blocking with his new fancy sword. And as the Warrior of Light rolls away, we get a shot of the Golden Throne itself. Beyond the ornateness of it, one interesting thing is that the T-like structure behind it that reoccurs in other architecture in Tuliolal is engraved with a cloudkin of some kind. Within game lore, there is just so much that we do not know about Tural that I'd be blindly guessing what it might be. Maybe a nod to Valigomanda. But while I'm not even a novice to Latin American mythology and stories, it could be something in-game inspired by the many different mythological winged creatures of that region. Like Alicanto, whose wings are said to shine at night with metallic, golden, or silver light, and has bright, colorful eyes. I'm not going to go too deep on real-world influences in this video, as A, it's not my wheelhouse, and B, there is just so much culture to dive through in that department. After the throne, we see its current occupant march towards the Warrior of Light, Gulul Jaja. His Hubigo tan head and his Buniwa blue head covered by a... Wait, that's the Blue Mage helmet from FF11! Who knows if that's just a nice little nod to 11, since, well, Mammal Jaw are kind of themselves, or maybe it's going to have stronger suggestions about his capabilities. If blue magic started with the Wallachui, it's possible that maybe Gulul Jaja studied with the Mammal Jaw at some point. We have two other examples of Mammal Jaw learning blue magic, so his Buniwa head knowing blue magic wouldn't be anything new. Now, since Gulul Jaja is specifically denoted as being a wise and powerful leader, my assumption is that this scene is more of a test or trial than the good king gone crazy. The rite of succession mentioned by Yoshi P, and a testing of our work. I'd also guess that this scene may or may not be one of those 5 but not facts are correct scenes. The Warrior of Light's new blade is ornate, but otherwise looks like the same kind of weapon a paladin would wield. There is an interesting connection that we'll get to later on though, as it appears in Turalian imagery elsewhere. But the sword doesn't seem to be enough. It seems like a shield would have been nice when Gulul Jaja hits the Warrior of Light hard enough to have him cut his own face, ruining his cloak and leaving an X-shaped scut.
X marks the spot. The Golden City. Pirates of the Caribbean looking ass dirtland. The prophecy is fulfilled.
In all seriousness though, the events here clearly take place after arriving in Tural, since it's the literal throne room, which means everything at the start and end of the trailer takes place before this scene. We also don't see the Warrior of Light with the sword prior to arriving in the New World. All of that's triple confirmed with the lack of X on the Warrior of Light's cheek at the end of the trailer. The flame transition to the next scene is so well timed that I wouldn't be surprised if that is where the shot ends. But I would be surprised if in the full trailer, we don't come back to this throne battle with the Warrior of Light revealing their new capabilities, and/or job. Since we've had all new jobs shown off in the trailers since Shadowbringers, there's no way we aren't seeing at least one with the Warrior of Light. And as for the other, well, Kryl has been suspiciously lacking from all 7.0 promo materials so far. Hopefully not unintentionally again. As of 6.4, we last caught her being chummy and catching up with Erenville, who we know is headed home to the New World, and she was left with a mysterious letter with a Tural look to it. Yoshi P told us that there would be 2 new jobs, a melee DPS and a caster. Since the Warrior of Light seems to be the melee DPS, though I have certain reservations after looking at Gulul Jaja, it could stand to reason that Kryl could pick up a new set of skills and outfit, worth keeping an eye on. Speaking of scions, we get a whole host of shots of them. Alice gets her fruit, which is an Anona, or a sugar apple, which is native to Mesoamerica, and apart from her surprise of where it came from, there isn't much in the shot of interest. I suppose we get a Swole Hrothgar in the background, and the area she's in is a market at Tuliolal, based on some of the art we got. In the next shot, we get Y'shtola looking at some kind of text on the New World. And in a blink and you miss it moment, it looks like one of those statues or depictions of a past leader is actually holding on to the same ornate sword the Warrior of Light is using in his contest against Gulul Jaja. Maybe the sword has nothing to do with the new job and is instead a symbol of power. It would explain why the Warrior of Light doesn't seem to have it at the start and end of the trailer before they arrive in Tural. Alternatively, it's shown in the hands of a Hubigo, and since they are the melee fighters of the Mammal Jaw, maybe it's the melee part, and the second part of the Warrior of Light's new setup is a new caster power, like the Buniwa. I don't think that's likely or what they're going for, but it's an interesting parallel. Or maybe I've been staring too long at this 3-minute video. On the next page, we have 2 images. One shows up later when Thancred is talking to the locals, and the other is the very statue Y'shtola has right in front of her. The statue is either a depiction of a pair of blessed siblings, like Mola and Glul Jaja, or in a broader sense, the 2 groups of Mammal Jah, with the Hubigo on the left and the Boniwa on the right. The wing motif on its back is something we saw with Glul Jaja, and with the bird iconography of the Golden Throne. So it's clearly a symbol of status. Y'shtola seems to be in Tuliolal, and here we have the starkest example of a cutaway, as she looks down, shocked at something, before we head right off to Graha. What could it be? Ancient knowledge? A Mammal Jah child? Runar with a flower? Only time will tell. And now, the one, the only, the boy, Taco Tia. No notes. Perfection. Okay, one note. They have the line, "Take a bite," play right as he takes a bite. Phenomenal. Estinian surrounded by Mammal Jah children is also great. So, something that caught my eye about this section is that the time of day seems to oscillate between shots, with Alice, Y'shtola, and Estinian happening seemingly during the day, and Graha, Thancred, and Urianger happening at dusk, with the order of time not being linear between them. That may just be a trick of the light in some cases, or, and here's where the crackpot theory tinfoil hat Elio comes out, is this hinting at the 2 sides the Scions will take? It's probably just a trick of the light. In the next shot, we get Thancred doing his best to flirt politely with the locals and ask for directions. The map he's holding has a compass, like Y'shtola's tome, but seems to be a treasure map. If I had to guess, it's leading to either the City of Gold, or at least the next clue to its location. Maybe that's what drew some of the Scions to accept the stranger's request in the first place. A simple adventure. Assuming the map isn't just utter gibberish, from what we know of the geography of Yoctoral, it would place the location of the map either in the northwest, along the coast, or in the south-central east, between all the plateaus. Based on that info and what we know of Urkopacha, that it's a region having a long-lost and dead empire of giant peoples, it would make sense for there to be treasure there. Maybe even the City of Gold and its gilded legacy. We also know there's other major cities within the New World that we'll go to. We don't even know what the B city is for the expansion yet. So there's still lots to discover around the different civilizations. Moving back a second, the shot from Estinian to Thancred blurs, but then hard cuts. So that might be another place where the shots will ultimately line up differently, with either something else between these shots, or the shot with Estinian played earlier, since the sun is much higher in the sky than it seems to be when Thancred is talking to the locals. One of the people Thancred's talking to, as well as people in the background, all seem to be wearing the same outfit. Blue jeans, blue shirt, and suspenders. And all of which seem to be Hydaelyn or Mikote. You can even see it earlier on in the trailer. This could easily be some sort of consortium of Eorzea, like the East Aldernar Trading Company. Or maybe they work for or live in Erenville, the place our glorious Gleaner Lappin friend hails from. Whoever they are and work for, they may not be natives, but since Tuliolal is a pluralistic society and place for commerce, they seem to be quite at home. Last but not least, my Elysian man, Urianger, is hanging out with what I hope is a pina colada in a pineapple cup, relaxing and staring up at the centerpiece of Tuliolal, which I assume is the temple that houses the Golden Throne since it shares its iconography. Blurring out from the blue sky to the blue sea, we get our final shot with the Warrior of Light removing his hood, and showing us his new Pirates of the Caribbean look, with the wide shot and the narration of an unknown person welcoming us to the land we know as the New World, Tural. Based on the way they are talking to us, it seems like it's a native, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guess they play into the story. The last 2 big things you can see on the boat are Alfino for a few frames, which goes along with his opening monologue, and the Warrior of Light with his hand clutching, well, nothing. It's a very odd grip, like, is there supposed to be a model there that was just removed? Look, I'm just saying it wouldn't be the first time they did something like that. In the wide shot, we can see Tuliolal front and center, and what looks like Yoctoel to the left. Those may, however, just be dirigibles that take us to Yoctoel, rather than being the location itself. On the right looks like a landmark of wicked spikes popping up out of the sea, and it reminds me of the Salt Strand and ocean features left by Bahamut's megaflare during the 7th Umbral Calamity. But they may be more akin to the jutting outcrops we saw at the start of the trailer with the Mammal Jah. Actually, now that I look at it, it may be this rend in the ocean we can see on the map. And at last, the logo reveals a city in gold. Tuliolal. Its zenith, the temple, front and center, with a lovely golden blue band around it. Last expansion was Ragnarok on its way to Ultima Thule, so it's good to see an expansion logo, perhaps a little less dire. Okay, it's about time I wrap this up. There is so much more to go into that's tangentially related, like all we know about blue magic, Hrothgals, Mammal Jah mating practices, and even the real-world myths and history that have inspired Tural. And one day, maybe I'll get around to making those videos. But in the meantime, Archons, what do you think? Are you excited to explore this new world? What things are you most excited to see, and what theories do you have? I'd love to hear all of them, and I'm excited to enjoy these next 12 months with you as we go on the wild boat ride with ebbs and flows that is the Final Fantasy XIV hype cycle. Hells, this was only the teaser, and who knows what will be in the full trailer. But we'll get there soon enough. For now, stay safe, Archons, and thanks for watching. Hey all, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, praise the 12 by giving it a like and comment, or by subscribing. It goes a long way to helping the channel. Don't forget, new videos every week, and if you want to engage with us further, why not check out our Discord and Patreon in the link below and become a part of our community. With that said, see you around, fellow Archons.
The prophecy is fulfilled.
I'm telling you guys, it's Corsair. It's gonna be Corsair. Oh my god, it's definitely gonna be Corsair or something like it, or they're actually gonna fuck with us. Maybe actually it's going to be like the sword is the sword, and then the blue, the other thing is the magic, and actually the warrior of light's the caster, because it's kind of like Gulu Jaja, where he's got like a blade and he's got like the magic staff, and like, okay, so it's like melee and magic, and it'll be like a great combo. Oh my god, this is all gonna get cut for time.